Hello, hi everybody. I would like to welcome you to our biochemistry class. Please.
Seven crovele vivaian vir, sempre fedele, sempre fedele ti voglio amar. Seven crovele mi fai non vir, sempre fedele ti voglio amar. Seven crovele mi fai non vir, sempre fedele ti voglio amar. Con la lunghezza del mio servir, la tua fierezza, la tua fierezza saprò stancar, la tua fierezza saprò stancar. Seven crovele mi fai languir, sempre fedele, sempre fedele ti voglio amar. Seven crovele mi fai languir, sempre fedele ti voglio amar. Seven crovele mi fai languir, sempre fedele ti voglio amar.
And I just noticed that I was in mute, so the last 10 seconds, no one could hear anything. So I was just telling that, thank you very much, Katia. We have just opened today biochemistry class with a very nice interpretation of Seven Crudele. Also one of the most beautiful pieces of music that has been written in the history of music. And you may have noticed that I have shared with you on the screen a couple of the exercises on this biochemistry class, which I want to say now that I am kidding. It is not biochemistry. It is something even more difficult than that. We are about to talk something that I would also like to call the multiverse of singing. Now that everything is a multiverse, thanks to Marvel Studios. Now we have a multiverse where singers, and you are about to realize about it. Singers like, or people in music like to use words that refer to a world that can be hardly described. So we will talk about the voice in terms of something like looks like food when we will talk about the pasta. We will talk about singing in terms that looks more like the singing of a bird when we will talk about the trino, and we will talk about the sound of a campanella, of a bell, when we talk about the squillo. But we will get there. Just wait. So I wanted to give this somehow of an introduction, because it is true that many singers like to talk in using these words, like only for other singers or people specialized in music can understand. And you will soon realize that they are very difficult to explain. So thanks to the voice of Katia, we will provide you audio examples of what we are trying to explain. And for that, and you know that I like anecdotes a lot, I am going to start this presentation with an anecdote. I had a very, I think, one of the most interesting conversations that I have had with another singer. He was a tenor at the Palacio de Bellas Artes, and I had the chance of having a very nice coffee and a very good conversation with him. And he was telling me that he was tired of many things, of which I am going to take only one for this anecdote, because there are many that are worth keeping for other programs. But one of the things that he shared me is that he was tired of having had music singing teachers who told him, no, this note, and I'm going to use the word in Spanish, es redonda. La voz se tiene que escuchar redonda, which redonda means in English round. So he told me, and how does she know that I understand what is a rounded voice? For me, rounded means absolutely nothing, because maybe, and when she explains me, for me, that means green. And when she says that it has to be seco, for me, it means something different. So the use of all these words make us think of many things, and most of the times not about singing itself. But sometimes it can be funny. So why don't we start with that one, that when I was thinking on how to explain the pasta, the only thing I could think of was of pizzas. And maybe some of you may realize about that. And when we talk about this very famous pasta, which I am putting now on the screen, when we talk about the pasta of a voice, there is no easy way to explain it. Because if you don't have a refined ear, or you don't pay that much attention, you may think that pasta refers to the volume, or how tough or how big the voice is, and that is not what we are talking about when we say that a voice has pasta. It has this certain, and I am going to confuse you a little more, because the voice has texture. How do you explain that a voice has texture? But a voice that has a given texture, or even more complicated, a given body, that when you say, the voice of Renata Scotto has a lot of pasta, like it has a lot of body, like it has a lot of texture. But when you talk of a voice like Nathalie Dessay, you say Nathalie Dessay does not have much pasta in her voice. So and some people say, okay, give me another example. Juan Diego Flores, is Juan, or I am adding another name? Well, the Peruvian tenor, his voice is very white. His voice does not have much pasta, to be sincere. If you listen to Mario del Monaco, that is huge pasta. The voice, the voice he has is just enormous. So this term pasta is used a lot to try to provide an explanation of what the voice of a singer actually has or does have not. The interesting part here is that you may realize when you listen to a given singer that he may play with his pasta or take out all of the pasta. And now I am going to refer to the very, very famous pianissimi by Montserrat Caballé, because I recall her in an interview, she was explaining, because the interviewer asked her, so how is it that you manage this magnificent pianissimi? And she said, it is very simple. You use, or you have the same technique as when you are going to to sing something full voice. The only thing that you take away is the pasta. So I hope you understood, but that's the explanation Montserrat Caballé provides for singing a pianissimi. Full voice, but take out all the body of the voice, and that turns out to be a pianissimi. So this pasta, sometimes I will provide you with an example at the end of today's program on how singers, when they know how to manage that pasta of the natural texture of their voice, can give a different, can help in providing much more sense to the interpretation. Sometimes you may feel like the singer is using his voice like it was lighter than it actually is. That means that your singer is taking out all the pasta. And then you listen to his voice again, complete, then he's bringing the pasta back. More or less complicated to explain, much more complicated to sing. I will not be providing an example of that, because now I would like to jump to another word. Well, I hope that term of pasta was not that complicated. And let's jump for the second term that I would like to share with you, which is the fiato. And now the fiato, that of course it's again in Italian. Now it has to do with the breath. And a lesson in breathing for a singer could take not even days, not even weeks, but months or maybe years, right? Because when you say that you're teaching a singer how to sing, the easiest way to do it is when you think of a very long note, because we have mentioned in the past that people like listening to long notes by the singer, to know that their preferred singer is powerful. So they like to listen to long notes. You may recall Con te partirò, which Andrea Bocelli and Sarah Brightman made very famous almost 20 years ago, if I remember well,
Oh my God.
around. Yeah, we are not that young. So maybe nobody knows what the whole tune of the song is about, but everybody remembers that there is a long note at the end, right? Con te partirò, con te. I'm not sure. I think the last expression is con te or something like that. Yeah, it's con te, right?
Io con te.
Partirò. No, partirò is con te. Yeah. And so, because people like to see it as an example of power, but I was also sharing with Katia prior to this program that in fact the fiato is not only for keeping the high notes. In the case of hers, as she does lots of coloratura, she needs a perfect breathing machine, which is her diaphragm and lungs, because she really knows that after playing with her voice, a microsecond of breathing, and then why don't you share us a little about how the coloraturas and the fiato are closely related?
Okay. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
So you may have realized that she had a breath almost imperceptible to most of mortals, but there is a very simple reason. We are humans and we need to breathe.
You need air.
Yeah,
It seems like you don't.
this is something that we have mentioned in the past. Composers are not very aware of, but the singers that they are writing for are actually humans, so they need to take breath somewhere. So the singer may decide where he steals a small piece of the music there, just to take a quick breath and continue. So it may be at the end of a phrase or at the beginning of another, maybe try to slow down, breathe, and immediately follows. And he says, oh, here there is an attack, so I can make a pause, so there is abbreviation. And you always look for ways to breathe because the composer
It's a
never
kind of
does,
puzzle.
yeah, never makes that favor to you. And sometimes you are singing out very loud and the music just doesn't stop, so you need to say, where am I going to breathe? And for a singer it is very important, and singers, when they have a very good control of their fiato, they pass this sense of, I would say, calmness to the public, because they know that the singer will go on with the music, even if there are long phrases, even if it is too fast, even if it's too loud. The singer will always know where to take breath. Opposite, and I was also sharing with Katia prior to this program, and please forgive me, you are one of those singers, but I really don't like, personally, I don't like it when singers like to keep the final note for long and end up like let's take the conto, instead of ceasing the note correctly, like that, you just stop their breath. They go like conto, something like that, like making, I really don't know how to explain it, but I think that it is because they have gone well beyond what their actual resources can actually do. So there is stop one time before you run out of breath, instead of giving that sensation of the singer almost suffocated on the stage, but he achieved another another second of that note. So a nice, beautiful note will always be appreciated by the public. But now it is also time to talk about Katya's expertise. And I was mentioning you before that now we were talking about the voice in terms of a verbs, because the trino, which in English is called a trill, in fact makes reference to those beautiful singing birds, and that's where the soprano said, "Hey, I can do something about it." Why don't you? You had explained this in the previous programs a little about what a trine is. Why don't you share another quick explanation on what is a trino, if the technique is actually hard, difficult?
Well, since my point of view, it depends. It's an ornament that depends on the agility and on how light a voice is. Um, I think that a light and a high voice can sound like a bird, just like you just mentioned. It's the execution, the rapid execution of two notes, and both of them must be heard, must be clear. Because when we talk about vibrato, it's just a note that vibrates. And it's vibrating, but it's a single note. In the case of a trino, you must notice the both of the notes that I'm singing.
And also, I think that it is important to mention that we have, or once, mostly sopranos sing these trills, these trinos, some male voices, not all of them. I will talk a little about more in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to mention that once a soprano has or really works well with these trinos, you don't go immediately for the two notes between each other, but you sometimes take one, may keep that for a little longer, and then go to the vibration between the two notes, because that is more effective. Like you just did it, like, oh, you don't go oh immediately. You go oh, and sometimes you go high, but there are singers that take it from the lower note and then keep it for a sec and then go to singing both, right?
Yes, it has to do with the period of the piece we are working on. It has to do with the style. Like we just saw in our image a few minutes ago when we started with the chemistry class. Well, ornaments and music has experienced changes at long of time. So in Baroque period, for example, trinos were understood in a very different way. I was preparing Persephone and Sylvia from Orfeo by Monteverdi, and some trinos have to be executed as the same note. You start in a slow time, and it increases. Like you just said, you can attack your trino from above, from the lower note, and I think that as music allows you to, you have to prepare it, announcing the both notes you're gonna sing. Because I feel you can prepare yourself, but you can't prepare your public on what you're gonna do.
Yeah, and I have to say that you forgot to mention another of the considerations for these trinos, the singer's ego. The singer may choose to do it one way or another, or keep it for longer than necessary, just because she knows that her trills are great, right? Let's
Just
be
because we
sincere.
can.
Just because you can, right?
That's the truth of it.
And I wanted to mention about the I was saying, and as Katia also stated very correctly, it is usually mostly heard what we call white voices, most of them female voices. So there are also white voices, and of course, voices do not have a color because sound doesn't have a color. Please forgive singers for that, but that's that's what it's usually called. So a white voice like Flores' voice, which is very white, he can easily sing a trino. But for a voice like Corelli's, that huge voice, by the way, he could sing trinos. But of course, with that immense voice that he had, it doesn't sound as clear and as nice as it does with a white female voice. But we were also mentioning, Katia, when we were preparing this, that please, singers, do not take it as an excuse for not working on your coloratura. Because and I'm sure you have met many singers that say, I am a lyrical soprano, I am a lyrical tenor, I don't need to work on a trill. Why should I work on coloraturas? You have to do it basically because you need to know how to do it. It doesn't mean that you will have a performance singing the Conte Almaviva on the stage. Maybe you will never do. But when you find a score that has a difficult passage, a difficult jump between two notes, you will be attacking it very easily because now you are used to do that because the coloratura has told you so. Would you like to add something
Of
to
course.
that?
Yes. For example, in Vivid Zoom from Stabat Mater by Pergolesi, there is a passaggio where you have to say and you're not making a virtuosistic aria by Mozart, but you have to be prepared by style to be able to sing a trillo. I understand some ornaments and some skills as making exercise. You don't go to the gym and work arm only and exclusively because I don't know. You must train your arms, your shoulder, your back, your legs. So it's part of your voice, it's part of singing. So it's necessary to train as much as possible any kind of ornament.
Yes, and to continue talking about ornaments, now let's talk about the mordente, which is a very funny word. If you happen to know that mordente in Spanish has to do with actually biting, so morder. So how did we end up using a word of someone using his mouth to eat or to choose something into an ornament sung by singers? Don't ask me how we. I, maybe somebody heard the quality of the sound and said, oh, it's like if somebody was eating something. I really don't know how we ended up using mordente, but why don't you share us a little about these mordentes? What are those? And maybe if you have an example, would be much better.
uh, well, for me, it's just to think about a main note that moves fast to a higher or a lower note and returns. It changed by periods too, but this is the way we understand mordente nowadays. Ah, 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 ah.
And that is a very useful and a very nice ornament to give a variety or to give a to work on the impression or the emphasis of a given word or syllable. And it is also, I think, it can be a very delicate ornament that also we have no excuse to, if our voice is not white and of a female, you still can work on trying to do some of these effects on the voice, because otherwise your singing always sounds plain, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that, like you end up being a singer with very little artifacts, or your arsenal, as I call it. You have so very few artifacts in your hand that after 2 or 3 times that someone has heard you sing, they have heard it all.
Yeah, and I think that something to consider is that you can always make it part of your voice, uh, thinking of your skills as how fast can you do it, and don't pressure yourself. You can start in a very slow velocity, like we were talking about the trino. We can apply it to the mordente too. Feel comfortable with your work, and then you can increase your speed.
Yeah, and at the end, please, no more excuses for not rehearsing some of the coloraturas that your voice can have, please. I know the public will appreciate it. And now I think it is a good time to talk about what I just mentioned a few minutes ago, the pianissimi. And I know if somebody here is a musician or already a singer, you may say that I am referring to what we found in the score sheets, where we have a P, a double P, or a triple P, which makes reference to the volume of the voice. But here I would like to refer not only to that low volume, but to that technique to make your voice. Yes, the composer told you to do it pianissimi, 1P, two double P, or triple P. But how is your technique around it, so that when your audience, your public is listening to it, listens to how your voice goes very softly in the volume, still keeping all the characteristics of your voice, and also making it sound beautiful, that it doesn't sound like somebody's strangling the singer. Because there are singers who actually sing like that and think that a pianissimo is to keep all the pressure here in the throat. And I know that already you can think of several examples, or even there are singers that are actually unable to sing notes in pianissimi. It really is a very nice artifact that is part of the arsenal of singers. When you listen to a voice that can touch a high note for a slightly piece of a second, and maybe not a perfect mordente because he doesn't have a white voice, but he goes like that, and then goes and can play with the voice and go very softly to the pianissimo, and then go back to the natural volume of his voice. Then the singer carries you. But when you see that the singer is just singing out loud, almost shouting, and goes to the pianissimo, and either skips it and sings it like all the rest of the aria, or does it in a way that sounds strangled, the only thing that we get is the public that is really not enjoying, when the public should be actually enjoying the music. I know you want to add something, and I also know that you want to sing something. Am I right?
Well, I think that to understand and execute a right pianissimi, you have to start from beginning that singers' main product is not the voice, but the air. So you can't sing loud, but not with your voice. It's a different work of your air. And then you can change from mezzo forte or fortissimo to piano, but not dying while you try to do it. When I change my volume, I'm just changing the volume of the air that I'm using. And I filter my voice within that volume of air.
And that is a very nice explanation.
It seems easy, but it's not.
Yeah.
Better practice. It's not as simple.
I'm not
as
sure.
I say.
I'm not sure if people watching this video noticed that you took your column of air, increased the volume, then decreased, then again increased, and then again decreased. That means that you have your lungs and your diaphragm in full control of the column of air, because that control resides within the organs that control and produce the air, not in the throat. That's why singers don't like they being strangled when they sing a pianissimi, and because they are trying to control here what really corresponds to how you
You're not
control
gonna
the
make
column.
it.
You're not, yeah. If, at the end, he will feel suffocated when he must be really at ease, because singing a pianissimi, from my perspective, it's very nice. And again, go back to the example of please singers of dark voices. Dark, we go back to the color, which means mostly male voices and mostly dramatic tenors or baritones or basses. There is no excuse for not rehearsing your pianissimi. You don't want to be that bass singing Filippo in Don Carlo. You know, when it says "Ella chiamai mamo," when you say mamo, no, il cor chioso a me, then you go high. Amar per me non. When the bass can take these notes with those extraordinary harmonics, with that beautiful color of a bass, and bring it to a pianissimo, that area is just beyond any comparison. It's of absolutely beauty. But if the bass is limited and he says, "Ella chamai mamo," no,
No, you're
well,
brilliant.
you completely put you destroyed the whole area. So please,
Go home.
basses, please baritones. I know that many young singers like to feel that they are very powerful, and the power is that they see how much color, how much everything, the strength. But it is better if you provide them with technique and see how you can bring those beautiful nuances to your singing by having a very good technique in handling your pianissimi. That you say, wow, he has a huge voice and he has great pianissimi as well. So when you face, if you're now baritone, a Verdian baritone, and you sing in the act when which you have just met that Gilda has been in the hands of the Duque de Mantua, that horrible guy there, you don't need to shout the whole area there. Cortigiani vil razza danata. At the end, you have to go low, and they see that now you are suffering, conveying that with your voice. But if you end up shouting just as you shouted, Cortigiani vil razza, and you sing everything like that, better not sing Rigoletto. Go for something else. We have now to move to the legato. And the legato is very interesting because even though, as you may have realized, I know you have realized, Katia's voice has an easiness for coloratura, and you may think that everything is just doing ornaments, but no, your technique has a lot to do with legato as well, and more precisely has also to do with Baroque and bel canto compositions. But why don't you tell us a little about it and maybe provide us an example of it?
Sure. The most simple way to explain legato is what I what once I heard. You must sound like a violin. Oh my god. Okay.
Okay, so I'll take note of that.
Okay,
How do I
but
do
why
my
not
legato? I
sing
sound
it?
like a violin. Of course, I can do that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes. Well, it's when our sound, our voice, and our phrase is smoothly connected.
Okay, still not understanding.
It sounds like a single line. I'm articulating with consonants, but it's like if they were floating on my vowels, and at the same time, like if it was a single vowel.
And no, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. I was just about to sing. No, it feels connected all the time. It's not like separated. It has to feel like a line, like a violin.
Okay. So if everybody who is watching is already aware of that, you need to sound like a violin. We also need to mention that there are many singers that have built a career around their legati. You listen to a voice like, let's say, Frederica von Stade, and Frederica von Stade has very beautiful legato. She sings Mozart, almost whatever she sings, and her voice is always, as you mentioned, like all her vowels, consonants, syllables, complete words floating, even complete phrases floating in the same column of air. Then again, easy to say, easy to ask from a singer, but not that so easy to achieve, because that also demands lots of control of your diaphragm, of your articulation, you understanding where you're going. So things can be complicated. I would simply suggest that people please appreciate. If you find a singer who has a good legato, please appreciate it because it's not that easily found.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
And we were talking about German and how complicated might it be, but I can sing Durch Zärtlichkeit und Schmeichel by Mozart. Legato. Durch Zärtlichkeit und Schmeichel, Gefälligkeit und Scherzen, erobert meine Herzen, der guten Mädchenleut, der guten Mädchenleut. You articulate and you have some kind of virtuosistic passages in here, but it doesn't have to be fighting against legato.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you listen to a creation of Puccini's music, let's talk about, for instance, Caballé's Liu in Turandot, when she sings Signore Ascolta, almost all that area is very beautiful with her legatos and their pianissimi. So this is a master class of reading from my perspective. Besides her beautiful voice, because nature just gave her that voice, but she had to work on her instrument to provide that continuous amount and quality of notes when she opens says Signore Ascolta, and it is like if the same column of air has put each of those syllables together, also the way she wraps up. But let's go for another ornament. Now let's go for the cadenzas, one of the very great favorites of singers. Yeah, tell us a little about what is a cadenza.
I don't like cadenzas.
You don't. I'm sure you don't. I'm really sure you don't.
Oh no, it's they're not my best friends. Well, cadenzas is an argument. It can be written. It's often written, but it can be improvised. It takes its name precisely from the moment in Baroque period when singers could take the time to do whatever they want to because we don't do that.
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. No, of course not. No, you never do that. Yeah, you know.
Just to show off how virtuosistic can they be at the end of an area. So at the end of an area, we can feel that it starts to fall to cadere, cadenza, cadence. So it has to give us the sensation of a falling point, that we are about to rest or finish. Like I said, it's usually easy to locate a cadenza at the end of a piece of music, but I want to talk about an area that has at least 3 cadenzas or 3 important cadenzas. Où va la jeune hindue, or the bell song from Lakme. And in these ornaments, the orchestra often quiets at all, and everybody is just looking at the singer, and we don't like that.
I'm sure you don't. I'm really sure you don't.
Please don't look. So the first cadenza here in bell song, it's kind of this.
And if it turns out that there is somebody who didn't know this passage from Où va la jeune hindue, or the bell song, as you perfectly said, that's why the orchestra is in silence and everybody's paying attention, because now we can see that the soprano is virtually doing whatever she pleases. You see, they take a note, play it here, go back for a high note, then go back to another ornament, then go back. That's pretty much
it's my moment.
Yeah, and they are very people expect them very often. That's when they know that they will see what their soprano is made of. There are also some cadenzas written for male voices with, given, as we were mentioning before, that male voices do not like to work on these type of ornaments. Some are good and some are catastrophic results. Because when a male voice cannot do it, and people, well, And then when you go to the final before the A in the La Donna Mobile, there are tenors who skip it, who do it, but very slowly. And when you work on a cadenza that slowly, and when people realize that you don't have any control of what you're doing, it just sounds horrible. And there are a few tenors who do it very nicely. But most of the times the result there that in the La Donna Mobile is not very good. Hopefully a singer or a tenor that is watching us is still a student and will change for good in the future, so that we have more beautiful because I really think that we need uh, more training, more male voices trained in these ornaments. Of course, no male voice will ever sing the bell song. Of course, this is way too much for a male voice, but at least if you have a cadenza in your
It's too
role.
much for a female voice too.
Yeah, it can be too much for a female voice too. But if you have one written, if you just have one written in your whole role, at least try to sing it well, right? Why don't we go now for the filatura? The filatura is also something very, very funny because you can hear some experts saying Giuseppe Di Stefano was very famous for his filaturas, and maybe you have even replied, yeah, Di Stefano's filaturas are very good. But actually, what a filatura means is when you have that note, the whole effect goes like when you start from which could be I think I have an example. If you think of Micaela's aria, the very last aria at Carmen's, when she has to face that horrible woman that is called Carmen so that she can take Don Jose back, the filatura is not written at the end of the aria. But when the soprano can actually do it, all of us can actually appreciate it. Because if I remember well, it ends, Señor, and it's like that, Señor, with that as she's begging God for her strength. That's how it usually wraps up. But there are many good singers, and I have heard a dozen of them, that what they actually do is they Señor, and they take it by seconds, decreasing the volume, that the way you rap it sounds completely different when you say Señor. I think you have noticed the difference. Maybe I didn't did it that well, but I try to show you that's the way. And when I listen to one of these singers doing it like that, I say, wow. Because they take from the note requested by the composer, maybe it doesn't have to be a high note, but it takes the final note. And instead of just saying, Señor, go with the volume, Señor, until you virtually disappear. And when the filatura is very well done, you don't even realize when the singer has stopped singing. It's just as his or her voice has become part of the whole stage, but you just don't listen when it really vanishes. And that, as in the examples that Katia provided, is also very difficult because it also has to do with the air. You just take a note, which you decide, then you keep and start to diminish it until it virtually disappears, but the voice keeps sounding with the best sound possible that you have, and it's delicious. And of course, unfortunately, there are not many singers that do it like that. Of course, it's much easier to just wrap up, Señor. I thank for the applause. Right? But if you want to provide a memorable singing of yours, you must really think of adding those filaturas to your singing. If you're comfortable with high notes, do it in a high note, which is difficult, and that's why most tenors don't do it, by the way. But if you can do it in the upper register, try it in the middle register. It also sounds very nice. That is just a recommendation, but don't take my word for that. Let's talk about now a very nice word that is also very difficult to explain. That is called the squillo, because you may have heard, oh, Corelli's voice has lots of squillo. Mario del Monaco, lots of squillo. Nicolai Gueda, oh no, he has no squillo in his voice. And you really don't know what the squillo means. Squillo, just the same way the trills or the trinos are very good for white female voices. The squillo is mostly present in, I wouldn't like to say powerful, but in male voices mainly. At this point, you may say, no, 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 Dolora Sajic had a great squillo. Yes, she has, but most of female voices do not have it. It sometimes it seems that it has to do with, yes, with the technique, but also with the way our emission works. How do you recognize it? Very difficult to explain. They, when they gave this name, they made reference to a bell. When you ring a bell, tong, 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 you happen to hear that metallic characteristic of the tong, tong, tong. The squeal in a voice, mostly identified in a male voice, is like that. You listen to the, I will call it the fundamental part of the voice, which is the central main note. And at the same time, you listen as in parallel, a note that is like having a very fast vibration that sounds like a metallo. That's why the Italians call it like that. Oh, it's like the metal of a bell ringing. So if you add the metal of a bell ringing to a male voice, that would be the squeal of Corelli. So the thing here is that you cannot play with the squillo as you can play with the trinos, the mordentes, or the pianissimi. Either your voice has it or doesn't have it. If your voice has it, then it is likely that everybody will hear you, even if the orchestration is heavy. If you don't have it, most likely people will not hear you, because the area or the vibration of the squillo is in the very, very high range, in a range that most of instruments of the orchestra cannot cover. So even if your central voice is being covered by the 30 musicians on the stage, still your squillo will still be heard, which will make people realize that you are still singing, because it's true. When the choir is singing in full fortissimo, the orchestra is fortissimo, there are singers that just open their mouths because they say that no matter how high they sing, nobody they will hear you. But the squillo is a very nice thing because it helps your voice to go through all those instruments and other voices, and they can still hear it. So just that is just informative, because if your voice has it, very good. If your voice doesn't, I'm sorry. There's
Sorry,
not,
not sorry.
sorry, not sorry. There's not much we can do about it. And as we're approaching the end of today's program, why don't we talk about your favorite, the fiorituras? Because many times all these ornaments that we have been talking about are gathered in a group called coloraturas, and one of the most frequent is the fioritura. How would you describe a fioritura? Now
It's a
related
flower.
to flowers. Yeah. The voice is like a flower, of course.
I sing flowers.
Would you like to add something to the sound of a fioritura? You like them? You feel comfortable with them, or you are just so in love with the trills and the other ornaments that the fioritura are not really of your interest?
No, uh, I think that I feel pretty comfortable singing any kind of ornament. I think that it really makes even more beautiful music that it's possible to say.
And I think you still can hear me, right?
Yep, I do.
Yeah. And I did it just because we are about to wrap up, but the same way we do it in all programs, we open up singing and we wrap up singing as well. And for that purpose, I'm not sure if I think I should be standing up because I think there is one thing you need to know about breathing. If you are sitting, it's very difficult to control your diaphragm. There is a given position.
You can.
Sometimes I can. I'm not sure if I will.
I sang the bell song and I was sitting.
I know. I have noticed that, but there's
Well, I
something like
practice every day.
as I was working on this program, I was thinking what would be a nice piece of music to share to wrap up today's program. And so I went for La Canzoneta Española by Gioachino Rossini, because anytime we think about good breathing, loads of ornaments, and fun, it has to do with Rossini. So, and I found something very interesting. I will be adding the link to this video on the description, because I found that there is a karaoke version of it, in the sense that the score is being put on the screen. And so if you want to be singing along, it is very nice because you can follow. So that's the one I chose for one reason. One, that if you want to follow it, you can go to the link, read it, and do it yourself. And the other, because it has clearly the indication on the screen when it goes faster. The song will have 3 tempi, at 90, 110, and 120. And I would also like to share with you that I will be doing some variations on what is being shown on the screen. So if you notice on the screen, if you go to the original video, if you notice on the screen that there is something different, it's because I am playing with some of the things that we shared today. So I will be adding volume, I will be putting out volume, I will be adding pasta, I will be taking out pasta. I will even add some notes that are not written, because I would like to share with you that, of course, you are the artist and you choose on how to sing a given song. But I would like to share with you that you can really add, and that's why I called it an arsenal. You can add so much to your singing by adding and making each of those versions yours, that your version can be very interesting. Of course, with the things that you can do. As I said, if you cannot do it, just
Please don't.
please don't, just rehearse and go ahead. I have been talking a lot, so I hope the music comes through fairly well, and I hope you enjoy it. You will realize that I will be doing this when we go for the second section, which means that we will go faster, and the third will be even faster. Well, I know that Katia can do even faster than what we are about to show, but that's because of the repertoire she has at hand.
I'm a kind of Speedy Gonzalez.
But for the rest of human beings, I hope this will do. Okay? Oh. Wait a second. We have something. And because of course, problems can always be around. Oh, I know what happened. No, I don't know what happened. let
me have all the answers.
let me have that back. See if we can. No. Let me see. We are going to reconnect. We are going to reconnect this thing, because technology was not on our side again. These things happen. Yeah, it's there. Now, please, everybody enjoy this amazing music by Gioachino Rossini. En medio a mis colores, ay, pintando esta bandilla, ay, cuando la moza mía, ay, me vino a atormentar, ay, ay, con dolor, pues deja obra siempre, siempre dichosa.
prendas celebrar, las prendas celebrar. Ay, ay. Get ready, two. Me mando que pintar, ay, asunto sobre mano, ay, pero la no el mago, ay, solo pude soñar, ay, ay. Ay, con dolor pues dejar obrar siempre, siempre dichosa. ¿Cuál alegría mía las prendas celebrar, las prendas celebrar, las prendas celebrar. Ay, ay. Three. Mi alma reconoce, ay, la fuerza de la bella, ay, mas mi perversa estrella, ay, me tenía y encantar, ay, ay, con dolor puede dejar obrar siempre, siempre dichosa. Cuál alegría la prenda celebrar, las prendas celebrar, las prendas celebrar. And that is a song that I enjoy very much. And it doesn't matter if you understand the words, because the words, you know, Rossini did what he did best. Just wrote whatever he wanted. So words make no sense, don't worry about that. So if you would like to try that one yourself, I know that you got our message of work on your agilities, on your coloraturas, work on your breathing, enjoy it more, and give it, and more than anything, enjoy it yourself. Anything you would like to say, Katya, so that before we just say goodbye?
Yeah, Richard, thanks. Well, work a lot and don't pressure yourself to sound as a coloratura soprano, because maybe you're not, and it sounds funny, but it's serious. And even we're all of us, all of our coloratura sopranos have not the same speed, because like we said, every voice is different from the rest. So practice, take your time, let your body has its own time, and take your speed, but practice all your ornaments and try to make it better each day.
And work on your breathing as well.
A lot.
A lot more. Okay,
that's the key.
That's the key. So thanks everybody for having joined us in this very accidental technical recording of today's. And we hope to see you next week when we will talk about what is the thin line between the opera being art, acrobatics, or just a circus. That will be our topic next week. Thanks everyone, and see you next time, sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.